Sedge.
Hello.
This is so funny. I feel like we met, well, Sedge and I have actually never met in person, but we've talked loads.
You're my internet friend.
Yeah, we are internet friends. And I'm that annoying girl who, I love a question, I always say it on here, but I'm that annoying girl who has Sedge. Even your husband, have asked your husband?
Yeah, you have. You have. He also loves it. He'll answer anything.
Kind of embarrassing.
Not at all.
But yeah, Sedge and I, well, I guess I've reached out quite a few times for a few different things. You've been on my life journey with me without even knowing.
Your career journey,
I
yeah.
started. I had an interview at sea at Connect.
Oh, I was trying to remember, as I said when I was driving, I was like, yeah, there we go.
So yeah, I guess I obviously know who you are, but for anyone who doesn't, who is listening, do you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, so I'm Sedge. I have worked in social and content forever and a day. So Red Bull, 3, ASOS, and then when I was 27, I founded my own agency, which was an influencer marketing business working with Nike, Lululemon, eBay, Panasonic, and then I actually completed my exit from the business in December. So I am 3 months into being a very chilled version of myself, far less stressed than I've ever been before. I've got my daughter, which is kind of priority number one, and I'm just enjoying consulting, mentoring, going into universities, going into schools and talking about this kind of weird world that we're part of.
Yeah, I guess let's talk about, because I find your career quite interesting, and I think, a lot of people might know you from LinkedIn or might have followed your journey.
Makes you sound like a loser.
No, that's how I kind of know about you, and I guess you've got a bit of a following on social as well, and so it's quite interesting, your journey of your career and how you got into social and then how you then went on to build a really successful business. So should we talk a bit about that? I don't want to talk too heavily about business, but it's a lot about who you are and your journey and who you've been. So let's chat about that a little bit.
Yeah. I think, to your point, who it is and defining me, since I graduated uni, my entire persona was Sedge who works.
Yeah.
And because I worked in social, and there's all these memes about you're a social media manager for ASOS, why do you have 5 followers yourself when ASOS has got however many million? And it's 24/7 graft, it's hard, it's full on, and so you can never really be bothered to do any of these things yourself, even though you might have the toolkits and the ability to be able to do it. And so when I then started the business, I was like, right, I have to PR the agency one way or another, and the easiest, cheapest, most cost efficient way to do that was through LinkedIn. And so I always say, the first time I posted on LinkedIn, I felt like I needed to go and have a shower. It just felt really awkward and really cheesy. And again, this is nearly 8 years ago, right? So now you've got the kind of LinkedIn influencer era where everyone is very proactive, positive, keen to post a couple of times a day on LinkedIn, but that wasn't my generation. And so I was quite early into posting on LinkedIn, although there was no strategy, no nothing. But what I was really fortunate for is 75% of our leads, if not more, for the business over those years of trading came from LinkedIn. And so for that, it's kind of I see firsthand the importance of being on LinkedIn to scale and get going from being an employee to being a business owner.
Yeah. And so let's talk about the building of your career outside of LinkedIn and then how you got to building the agency.
Yeah, so I was really lucky with the agency. So I'd been at ASOS for 5 years. I started as the first social media hire. There were 32 people by the time we left. I was knackered and I really was just cool, what is next? And I had a job at Instagram that I was kind of going through the 20-stage interview process for. And then I met what is now kind of my investor, he is the investor of the agency. And it was just one of those moments of being in the right place at the right time. We had a conversation about one of his other businesses, and I am constantly enthusiastic and overexcited. And I was just talking about influencer and all the stuff that I had been doing at ASOS that at the time no one else was doing. And he was very much well, just give it a go. So
the agency wasn't in the plan?
No.
Oh God. Okay.
Even worse than that, I always said I would never go agency side because I love I love the brands that I work for.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I'm a Nike diehard, Dyson diehard. And I just get so weird about these brands. And I was like, I just want to work for a brand that I love at all times and give it my 100%.
Yeah.
And the thought of being agency side and like splitting yourself across 2, 3, 4, 5, however many like brands, I couldn't really get my head around it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was like 27, never worked with an agency, now owning an agency and just giving it a shot. And I've obviously loved it. It's been amazing and brilliant. And I learned a hell of a lot in that time about brands, but obviously also around like businesses, because when you are in one brand and one brand only, you can also be quite siloed and also quite naive to what else is going on in the world.
Yeah. What did that feel like as someone who was kind of going through a process of finding a new role or building their career in social media for brands to then owning an agency? Are you like, fuck, what do I do with this thing?
Yeah, daily. And even when I learned the kind of, each moment where I was like, I have no idea how to do this, there was then another 10 things that I had no idea they even existed that I then need to learn how to do. So it was like a real life MBA where you had to learn on the go.
Yeah.
It was 24/7. You never could stop, because even when I was like lying in bed, you're thinking, right, okay, these are all the other 1,000,001 things that I need to do and that I should be doing. And for the first few years in particular, I literally never stopped, and I had no reason to stop. Like I, didn't have a house or a kid or a husband and all these bits. I was like, this is me. I'm just going to make a success of this because I've put my name to it and because I'm talking about it. And as I said, you just learn those things the hard way. And then as you start to develop and you start to build and you get more revenue, then you can start to hire in the experts. And I'm always said this too, but like you should always hire people that are better than you. But when you're again in-house being like, head of social, you might have someone that's better at YouTube or someone that is better at the analytics, a better copywriter. You're all of a sudden then hiring for roles that you couldn't actually do. So a CFO, a sales director, and that throws completely different challenges and curveballs at you as well.
Yeah. You said in the beginning about, Sedge, the girl who worked.
Yeah.
Is that intentional? And where does your mindset sit with, and I guess we can go into this in a little bit more depth because obviously you've stepped away from the agency now.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about Sedge, who was the girl who worked, and was that intentional?
Unintentionally, yes. Like I am, and I always have been, like super ambitious, really, really driven. And again,
where does that come from?
Do you know what? Honestly, I used to trampoline as a kid, and I think that kind of competitiveness and it just gets instilled in you. Yeah. And my dad has his own business. He has run that since he was like 16. My mom always worked away. So I was always in an environment where I saw people working really, really hard. Yeah. And it never really was an option for me to not be kind of in that position of, if you've got those hours, just keep grinding. Yeah. And I never had work-life balance, but I never wanted it because my mindset was very much, and generationally, this is very different, right? Like I'm in my 30s, mid-30s, and a lot of my friends are the same, and you were very much brought up to just like work, and there was the toxicity that comes with that of like being first in the office, being last in the office, and that also takes quite a lot of a mindset shift to get out of that cycle. But yeah, I think from being in that environment, being really young, being competitive, but also I enjoyed it. I have never not enjoyed and loved what I do. And that makes me really, again, hyper excited, enthusiastic to keep doing it, to keep learning, to keep doing more. Yeah. So it was never like going to work and thinking like, oh God, this is a chore. It was enjoyable. Yeah. And again, when you're younger, I set up the business when I was 27, I could. And my whole mindset was like, I need to make as much money as I possibly can so that I have more choice when I need to have choice. And right now, at that point, 27, I didn't feel like I needed to go and do other bits and pieces. And I had a great social life too, but my friends also didn't have kids and would go out and get pissed, and that was great. So yeah, I just think it's those kind of like different stages of your life that you go through.
Yeah. There's a lot of conversation around like balance and work-life balance at the minute. What are your views and opinions on that?
Well, again, the funny thing is like I'm so different now that I am in my kind of mum era versus my work era. And I went back to work way too early. I went back to work after 4 months. I had an obscene amount of pressure with the business, but also fear with the business. And I reluctantly went back and I was just not ready. I cried the whole way on my first day on the tube, hid in meeting rooms, like cried. And I was also,
you just felt it was wrong.
oh, everything felt wrong. I didn't want to leave my daughter. I hadn't left her. And I was also paying for someone else to look after her. And it was a nanny's first day. And I was like, why am I paying for someone to do the job that I actually want to be doing? And everything from that point, like, really kind of my whole life did a bit of a 180, because I was like, fuck this. I could be with my daughter and I could be spending time with her, making memories with her, doing the job that I think I'm absolutely best at, or I could be here. And it never really, until that point, occurred to me that the way that I was working was insane. And if it was
people mentioned that to you?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, yes, I always got told, oh, you work really hard, but I took it as a compliment. I never really saw it as a, like, you need to take your foot off the gas or relax or enjoy things. Me and my then CFO used to battle this out quite a bit, and he was very much like, go on holiday, don't check your emails. I was like, no, I go on holiday and I check my emails in the morning, and I check my emails whilst, everyone else is having a cocktail before dinner or whatever it might be, because I'm still then on top of things and I know what to expect, and I like knowing versus coming back blind to things. And the reality is I just didn't know how to switch off. And roll on 18 months since I've had my daughter, and I haven't really worked Fridays at all. Like, I've been really, really strict to my Fridays. I've not worked most Mondays, so I've gone from working 5 days a week to 3 days a week. Obviously, as I said, I've stepped away from the day-to-day of the business, so I consult and I work for businesses, for brands. I mentor quite a few agency founders, and I put my laptop down at 5 p.m. I get my daughter from nursery, and then 5 till bedtime is mine and my daughter's time. And it's unbelievable. And I would never want to be in a situation where I felt like I had to keep working till 11, 12, 1 at night, skipping bath and bed, skipping that morning. Although I do at the moment, I'm so tired. I'm like, husband, can you she's up again at like 5:30. It's your turn. And yeah, like weekends, I worked every weekend, and now my weekends are filled with like the zoo and soft play, and I'm so much more content and happy than I have ever been. And I think a lot of that comes as well. Like, I hired a lot of people that were 10, 15 years younger than me, who were very much like, no, this is a job, and I'm here 9 till 5, and I will be in the office 2 to 3 days a week, and I have got my balance. And it took a bit of getting used to when you're hiring different employees with different mindsets and different views of what work-life balance is and what work means to them. But again, I was like, well, I'll take a leaf out of their book for a change, and I'll spend some time with Mari.
Yeah, nice. In terms of before you had your daughter and when you were hustling and grinding and it was 7 days a week, what was your interpretation of, or was there any balance?
No.
And would you do the same again
if you want, I genuinely believe that if you want to run a business, it is not a 9 to 5. Yeah. You swap that 9 to 5 with a 24/7, and that doesn't mean being at your laptop 24/7, but there is the mental load that goes with running a business. And I still believe today, if you are going to start a business and you think that you can put your phone away at 5 p.m. and everything will be fine the next day, and you won't, you'll just manage to maintain things, I don't think it's a realistic view of being a business owner. It is hard graft. It is 24/7. And yes, there are loads of different ways that you can combat that. And as you start to scale and as you start to have more revenue and you can make more of those hires to ease that workload. And again, if I was to do my time again, I probably would have a co-founder, because what I really realized when I went on maternity was like, actually, there was so much stuff that I just did that I didn't realize I did. So it wasn't in my handover. The team didn't realize I did. It just happened. Yeah. And actually, if you're a co-founder and you've gone through that journey with someone else, and again, you've got to have completely different skill sets to be able to bring to the table to also scale that business, again, you can elevate and get the business to a completely different position. And I think what I also never did was work out what my exit plan was. 27, never worked with an agency, all of a sudden running one. I was like, this is great and this is fun, and I'm getting to work with all these brands that I have like loved and admired and would have been on like my bucket list to work for anyway. And I was obviously getting to like see the world, meet all these amazing celebrities, influencers, and obviously it was hard work, but as I said, I enjoyed it. So it never really became a thing for me of something's got to give, or I've got to find more balance. And as the years went by, I then did realise, actually, if you have an hour in your diary, it's a really great time to go and get your nails done. Or like the pandemic, I would go for a bath at 2 p.m. because I was like, right, there's nothing right now. And that was a real big shift for me too, because again, it used to be in the office 9 to 5. I wouldn't, go and get my kit off in ASOS's head office and just be like, right, gonna go for a shower in the middle of the day. But it's like taking that time for you. So I guess I probably started to subconsciously ease into that mindset. And I think the pandemic has a lot to say for that too.
Yeah, I agree with that. To be fair, I'm a bit similar to that now. I mean, I'm employed, full time, but I do similar things. Like I could go get my nails done on a Friday morning, for example, but I also work till 8 p.m. every night. So I don't have, I'm working into my personal time, and I do think you're right. And I also think, I mean, my journey as well, but I wanted to start a business and I wanted to start a beauty brand a few years ago. But I actually, looking back, I actually got quite far down the line. I mean, your husband was mentoring me quite a lot. And actually, it was a genius idea. It was essentially beauty on Deliveroo, and I was having conversations with Deliveroo about it. And then actually, the pressure got so much that I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I just pretty much just freaked out. But then I also think a lot of pressure was coming from me researching or following, or a lot of conversation about starting businesses and on being entrepreneurial. On social media, and so I put that pressure on myself to be like, fuck, I need to start a business. But actually, fast forward 2-3 years, I'm super entrepreneurial anyway. I do it within a corporation, and I think that's okay.
It's absolutely fine.
It's it's a different journey, but I do think there's a lot of things that come with being a business owner that people don't understand.
Yeah, they don't understand, they don't see it, and you also, a lot of the stuff you see on social, and I look, I have worked in social forever, so I'm biased. And for every positive, there is obviously a negative. But you have got so much access to content from entrepreneurs who are talking about, I get up at 2 a.m. and I meditate, and then I go to the gym, and then I do this, and then, I've already made £1 million by 8 a.m. And whilst it is great to be able to see and access and be connected to all these entrepreneurs globally and see all these other ideas and take their learnings, also there's so much smoke and mirrors that goes into that kind of personal brand, that goes into being an entrepreneur and being present on social. And you've got to take all of that stuff that you consume with a bit of a pinch of salt and work out, again, what is important to you as an individual, not looking at everyone else and competing. And I used to look at every single one of my competitors and I would audit them every month, and I'd be like, shit, why did they get that brief? And, how come they've got 50 people and we've only got 30 people? And I would constantly be quite negative to myself, but because all of this stuff is accessible and you can constantly see the updates or the pitches that you were on and then you didn't win. And then again, it was like a mindset shift of, well, actually, I'd far rather work with people versus feeling like I've got to compete against everyone. And then when I started making referrals to like Connex's minimum spends, if we got a brief and it wasn't for us, I'd refer it to a couple of other agencies. And then actually when they got a big brief they couldn't handle, it would come back round. And some of my like solid relationships and people that I talk to the most now are other people that have founded and ran businesses, some of them in similar spaces, some of them I'm now mentoring. And it's like just dropping that guard a little bit to go, shit, this is really tough. And there isn't anyone in the business that you can talk to that you can say, do you know what, I'm having a really, really awful day, or this thing happened and I've never, ever, had to deal with something like this before. What would you do? Because you're the person at the top that is supposed to have your shit together 24/7 and know the answer to everything. And so, having that network of other people that again I've only connected to through like TikTok or LinkedIn, but it's an invaluable network when you need it to just go code red, having a shit day, talk me off a cliff here, what would you do, have you been in this situation? And again, like complete sidestep, but like that's what I'm loving so much with mentoring other agency founders is they're telling me these things and they're coming onto these calls like either in tears or really stressed, and I'm like super chill, just like, oh, I've been there, done that, had that t-shirt signed, cool, this is how I would break it down. And I get so much out of seeing kind of just them relax in that like hours call because they realize they're not alone or they're not the only person that's been through it, which again hopefully helps them as well as it does me.
But I guess when it's your own and there's so much, like you said, there's so much pressure on it to be perfect or to be right or to make the right decision, and I guess in business, but also in life. Like, the only way to learn sometimes is to fuck up, or to
100%,
make a bad decision,
100%.
or to do something wrong, and grow from it next time, you know.
And every time you feel like you're winning and you're on this amazing trajectory, something will come and smack you in the face and give you that reality check to be like, no, you don't have your shit together, or like, this is a curveball that wasn't on your bingo card for this year. And that is, again, the roller coaster of just running a business. And as much as you want it to be perfect, and as much as you don't ever want to cock up and make mistakes, you will. And I am a big advocate of the more times you fail, the stronger, the better that you become as a business owner, or again, in life more broadly, because you get to take those learnings. And I also think when you're in those moments, you don't really get a chance to, you know, break down, work out what's going on and work through it. You're just like, gut instinct kicks in and you've just got to get on with it. And I am a big advocate of just trusting your gut, getting on with it. Whatever your instinct says is always going to be right.
Yeah. What is your relationship like with failure? Because I think a lot of people struggle with trying something for a fear of it failing. So what is your, and I guess that question, the answer to that question might have changed over the years as well.
Yeah, when you've put your name to something, it can feel so humiliating if it doesn't work out. But I would far rather be the person that gave it a really fucking good shot and it didn't work out than sit there and kind of have this what if forever. So I am very much a person, and I this is quite new for me, but I've just decided that I am like a 0 to 10 person. I have ideas. I can go and do a lot of research. I can connect all the dots. I can bring those people together and I can make shit happen. But actually what I really need is then to pair myself up with 11 to 100. And that is the person that wants to do the process, that's really calm, that's really considered, that can just then elevate that idea and take it to the next stage and make it more formulaic and process driven and successful. Because, you know, there's different skill sets that different people bring together. And I think that embracing that failure and knowing that you do need a support system, or you do need someone that you can go to. And again, that gets so much easier when you're in a position now where, you know, in the pandemic, I got myself a coach. And because I was literally in a room on my own, if you saw the way I spelt furlough, when I was like, okay, government says we can furlough people, I was like, furlough, Googling, like, what does furlough mean? And I couldn't find anything. And I was like, oh, cool, great, because I can't spell. And I'd never heard the word before, right? And then you're all of a sudden in these processes doing things that you're just not privy to. And then you speak to someone else, they're like, oh, God, we've been here before. This is what you do. And so, again, using that network which you develop over time is hugely, hugely important, and makes you want to embrace that failure and make those cock-ups. And it doesn't mean that you're going to run a business and lose all your money. It might mean that you run a business and it completely takes a 180. Again, like, this podcast has changed as you've matured and as your views have changed, and it's having the ability to also adapt is really, really important.
It's actually quite refreshing to hear you on the furlough thing, or, you know, not being able to spell it. Most people wouldn't, and that's a tiny example, but like admit to not knowing something. Like, I write a bit about it on LinkedIn as well, about like just asking the question and being okay to not know. And then even I work in the social team at work, they know pretty much everyone is a lot younger than me. They know so much more than I do. I learn so much from them. Yeah. So it only enhances me to then go and ask. But a lot of people don't want to admit when they don't know the answer to something. Yeah. So it was quite refreshing to hear you say that.
Yeah, I think, and I actually think this is worse from not being in the office. And I'm a big advocate of hybrid working. But I think when you're starting your career in particular and you're not in the office 24/7, 5 days a week, and you don't have anyone to talk to, you start to create that mindset of, I have to be able to work it out and I have to have all the answers myself. And that's not true. But when you were in the office, you build rapport with people, you might go for a drink with people, grab lunch with people, and then it'll be like, oh, do you mind just telling me this? Or I had an idea, what do you think of it? And I have always tried to be I won't have the answer, but ask me, and I might be able to pin people together to get it, or we can fudge it and see what happens and give things a go. And again, when you're running a business and you're running an agency, you're also in a position where clients want to try, test, do things completely different that are also brand new. So you have to kind of be the guinea pig a little bit there and handhold through those processes. But I think particularly for younger employees who are starting their career, it's just hard now to get the answers when you are only in 2 days a week, and you might sit in meetings in that time period and you don't have the relationships that I definitely had. You know, my wedding, all my friendship group was predominantly people from ASOS because I was there for 5 years, 5 days a week. And every evening and in the pub constantly. And so I've got some of my like lifelong friendships through being at ASOS. And I think that's one of the big changes that will happen with hybrid working.
Yeah, that's true actually. I hadn't thought about it like that, because a lot of my best friends are from my first job in London actually 6-7 years ago. So yeah, I hadn't thought about that. We've talked a lot about work and you as a kind of a business professional, career woman, entrepreneur. Who are you outside of that?
Again, pre-daughter, I was just me who worked and then loved to have a good knees up every now and again. And now I'm like definitely kind of mom first and foremost with everything. And even the jobs I take on, I'm like, are these aligned to my values? And am I going to get something out of this? And again, when I was running the business and setting up the business, not to go back where we were, but when the business was smaller, I was able to instill a lot of the things that were important for me into the business. And a lot of when we recruited people, they were really on board with those values and really aligned. And obviously, as that gets bigger, it gets harder and harder to control when we're like 60 people across different markets. And again, what I've been able to do is kind of like reset that work purpose, because work also for me doesn't just mean grafting as hard as I can and building something. Actually, at the moment, like I teach kids from underprivileged backgrounds how to read. As I said, I've been mentoring agency founders because I've got a lot of shit that I've been through that I can kind of pass on, and that I can be there just to be a pair of ears and a support system. But then I'm also kind of going into universities, I'm going into schools, I'm doing quite a lot of career counselling, because when I was at school, this was like, you know, Coursera and TikTok and all of the access that you have online. You're basically told you can be a teacher, you can be a doctor, you can be an accountant, and none of those things were right for me. And even when you go to university, the courses and the syllabuses have to get signed off so far in advance that information is often out of date anyway. And so the more guest lecturers that you can get into schools and into universities just to talk about, do you know what, this is actually what my job is, or this is what my career was, or this is what it meant when they said I was, you know, whatever my title at whatever business it is. And I did one recently and I was like, who wants to work in marketing? It was with like 16-year-olds at a career council. It was about 90 people in the room and one person put their hand up. And then I taught them through like my job, different roles in the industry, where I think the industry is going, the roles that I would be looking for if I was 16, having the access and the knowledge. And by the end, it was like 50% of people put their hands up and were messaging me. And I had someone's mum message me to be like, you've just completely changed my daughter's career path on LinkedIn. She was like, she won't stop raving about marketing and advertisement. And now she's looking at changing what she's going to uni and all of these other things. And if I can do that for one person, like that's amazing. And again, so like now me is like, I'm still hyper, I'm still energetic. My daughter is a mini me, so like I get so much joy out of like taking her to gymnastics and she just squeals and runs around wild. I'm like, that was me before I got knackered and exhausted because I've got kids. And so yeah, just like who I am is someone who spends time with my family, puts my family first as my priority, continues to work, but also whatever I can do to kind of support and upskill other people, I always will.
Yeah. You've always kind of struck me as someone who kind of really knows herself and sticks by her guns and is confident in your capabilities and what you bring to the table. Is that a true reflection of who you are?
It's probably a pretty fair one, yeah. I've definitely gone through quite significant wobbles where I've questioned myself, I've questioned everything within that. And actually most of that probably happened in the last 2 years of running the business. It was the hardest 2 years of any situation and any career moment that I've gone through in my life. Just a lot of stuff. I was pregnant, I was setting up the US, I was going through a private equity deal that failed. It was very hard to as someone who is a bit of a control freak, who, high Virgo energy over here that can maintain and keep on top of everything. All of a sudden I was in another market and I was dealing with a completely different kettle of people that everyone talks in lingo in private equity, and I can talk that lingo now. I wouldn't make the same mistakes twice. But you're literally there wanting to bash your head against a wall, being like, why are you speaking in acronyms when you know that I've never sold an agency before? And it was a very male, very aggressive, multiple people that I met through that process, and it was intimidating and it massively knocked my confidence. And again, if I was talking to someone else, I'd be like, but yeah, they're in a room with you trying to buy your business and they're all pinning themselves against each other, and we got multiple bids for the agency that were all over what we kind of anticipated and expected, but then also that deal not going through. And it didn't go through because I was 2 weeks before my due date, being like, this is insane. Like, am I going to be in a labour ward, drugged off my eyeballs, signing away something I've spent 7 years of my life building? And I just couldn't put the team through it either, was my big thing. Was like, I know what my investors today are like. I can read them like clockwork because I've worked cheek to jowl with them forever and a day. But to go to my senior team, here's a load of people that I've never really worked with and I don't really know what to expect. Off you go. And I think it just knocked my confidence. I was also completely drained because I was pregnant, not sleeping. And then I just felt like the wheels came off everywhere for me at that period of time. And again, that was also came into a lot of the decision as to why I decided that actually moving forward, I needed to build a business where it would run like clockwork with me not at it as CEO, because I want another kid. I'm pregnant. Yeah. So but that was my priority, right? And I was so stressed first time round. I don't want to put myself in a position when I'm pregnant second time round, not sleeping, not eating, bawling my eyes out most evening just because I was so drained by everything that was being thrown at me. And again, I'm like, this is brilliant. I'm enjoying my pregnancy. I am enjoying spending time with my kid. I'm still making more money. I've actually weirdly made more money in Q3. Sorry to talk in my always business acronyms, but than I would have working 5 days a week as my base salary is Connects, and I worked 3 days a week and I took the whole of January off. So again, that's not going to always happen, because I can go, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to take a month off before the baby comes and do something crazy with Mari, whatever it might be. But that choice is now mine, and I didn't feel like it was before.
You must have learnt a hell of a lot from that experience of priorities, but also putting you first, putting other people first within the business and other people's needs, I guess.
Yeah, I'd never put myself first in business, which the reason for that is because I was just a clog in the wheel. My clients were the priority, because without clients, you don't have revenue, you don't have a team, you don't have an office, you don't have all those luxuries. And so it was always clients, team, husband, family, and then I would kind of appear somewhere over here. And again, all of those things just happen subconsciously. And now it's very much Mari, husband, all the other stuff, and maintaining and keeping that career. Because again, I'm still as ambitious as I was before. I still want my daughter to see me working and being part of the family and building, being able to contribute to the mortgage or whatever it might be. I don't want her to be like, women don't work, this is fine, because that was never instilled in me. I still want to work, I still need to work, and I still want her to see that and to be able to make kind of her decisions as she gets older too.
Yeah. Where does that come from, that I guess a woman and a female figure in your daughter's life being proactive and ambitious and driven?
I don't know. I really enjoy anyone's success story, but I really enjoy a woman's success story. And that's also quite new for me too, because beforehand, I think I was always just kind of a bit too head down, just get shit done and get on with it and kind of do what I needed to do and stay in my bubble. And then when I, again, have gone through this PE process and I'm being told we've made a real big ambition this year to invest in women. So you'll be the first ever business we've ever invested in. And you're like, well, you're not really the type of person that I want to get on board with now, because you've just told me. And then I started to do quite a lot of research around female angel investment, female businesses. And then I got this whole new wave of respect and knowledge, but also, again, having a kid and realizing that juggle and the enormity of pressure that I put on myself to be present at home and be present at work, but still make sure I work and still make sure I bring in money for the family, and all of this constant mental load that. And I read something once, and it was so when you have a baby, everyone says the same thing to you, which is sleep when they sleep, or make sure you find time for yourself, or take a break. And it used to piss me right off, because actually I wanted to spend time with my kids. She's 18 months, I still want to spend as much time with her as I possibly can, because there is a shelf life where they move out and they go to uni or get a job or move abroad or whatever it is that is important to them. And so you don't have forever. And these moments are like, so it's cheesy. They're so special. They're so precious. She gets so much from like me and Daniel, my husband. And that was, again, I'm like, I would far rather set up a business when both my kids are at school and I've got 5 days a week again than miss out on opportunities now. And I just think for me, when everyone was saying to me, you know, take a break, do something for you, I'm like, take my washing by all means and take it to your house and bring it back washed and ironed, or like empty the dishwasher for me. Don't try and take my kid off me. Or like when I'm sleeping, when they're sleeping, I'm actually in Waitrose right now doing my shopping. So should I just have a little nap in my trolley like whilst my kids are asleep? Like it just is so impractical. So it is just that like absolute mental chaos that is motherhood, that is also just fucking brilliant.
Yeah, but I quite like that though, and you doing your own thing, because I think, and it's so easy to fall into a trap of doing what everyone else is doing, or doing what, I don't know, your friend who's got 3 kids is doing, or, you know, and taking that advice, but actually doing things your own way and figuring it out. Again, it's a bit, people don't really speak about it.
Yeah, you can, and I think again with kids, every single thing contradicts. So like I had 2 different midwives that come in to check once you've had the baby. They said completely conflicting things about her cot, conflicting things about breastfeeding, because everyone forms their own opinion. And it comes from a great place because everyone wants the best for your child. But ultimately you have to I was like, I'll listen to anything that anyone wants to say, but I will decide what is right. And I'll just kind of have this like fuck it mentality of it is right for us, it is right for my family, this is what we'll do. And kind of you can keep all your opinions at bay because there are so many of them. Yeah.
I actually can't imagine, because I know that when you're pregnant, everyone has.
Oh, it's so weird because it's also just like my daughter would be like a week old and I'd have taken her for a walk and someone will like fully go in the cot, into the pram, and start being like, oh, lovely. Oh, what's her name? Oh, that's unusual. I wouldn't have called my kid that. And you're like, I'm literally just grabbing a loaf of bread. But it's just this is funny, like once you've got a kid, it's just like, oh, tell me everything. Tell me anything at all that you don't like the name, fine. Oh, you don't like what she's wearing, fine. You don't like that I'm still breastfeeding, or you don't think I should be breastfeeding at like 7 months, or what, like, you know, but it becomes quite comical. And I do think some of that you have to have a certain level of thick skin. And I can see how that can affect other people in completely different ways, because it is bonkers.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, you said something about and that I really related to, in terms of, you didn't say it in this way, but being inspired by female empowerment, or really supporting. I love it too, women supporting women.
Yeah, and
that for me came from working in the beauty industry. I've never ever experienced colleagues supporting one another.
Amazing.
In that way, even. And I think it was because we were all women, but also beauty comes with quite a sentimental message. Whichever brand you work for, it's really deeply rooted in you that there's some mission there.
Yeah.
Which I think there is outside of beauty, but beauty's just a bit culty like that, I guess. Where has that come from for you?
I just think it's being on the firing line and going through the process firsthand. And again, now being in a position where I can see and speak to and connect with, and just there is so much value that you can add to one another. And it doesn't need to be like dick swingy, and which again, when you're in those male environments, which I'd spent a lot of time in being predominantly the only female, and I'm completely and utterly fine in those environments and I can handle my own, but actually all of a sudden it is quite a big switch up and a big dial change to then be like, right, what can I do to help you? What can I do to support you? And there's a woman I spoke to recently, and she connected with me on LinkedIn, sent me a message, runs a completely different business to what I have done or have any knowledge in whatsoever. And she was like, I just want to pick your brains on a couple of things. It's like a 20-minute call. And I was so impressed with her. Completely coincidentally, there were other introductions that I then made, and I gave her like 3 clients, and she's done this like massive LinkedIn post about, you know, how wonderful and great I am. I'm like, that's not true. Like it happened to be right time, right place. I didn't go out my way to find you new business leads. It just was circumstantial that I took the time, and the same way I took the time for her. There's, you know, millions of people that have taken the time for me. And And that might be an introduction to a lead. It might just be listening to me when I'm having a tough day. It might be when I've, had my daughter and, I put a LinkedIn post up being like, whoa, I'm back on like my first day back after 4 months. I haven't taken enough maternity off. Like, how do I handle this? And actually, a lot of my senior personnel of all of the places that I've worked, all mums were like, this is what worked for me, this is what worked for me, this is what worked for me. And there's a couple of those of like comments that I have like ingrained in my brain that I come back to when I think about. And they're people that I never really spoke to day to day because they were 10 levels more senior than me, but in kind of my time for need when they've also had that, been through an experience going from work life to mum life, took 2 minutes out of their day just to go, I think this might help.
Yeah. I think there's something to be said for that. And again, I think that's something I've kind of always thought about when it comes to you and being open and helping people. I think there's a lot of people who aren't maybe as open. Why? I want to say why are you so open, but I don't know how to reword it. But I guess, well, yeah. What like why? Because I guess a lot of people are too busy to support or want to be paid for X, Y, and Z.
I enjoy it, and I also just think, again, I have been in a position where I was always a lot younger than most people doing what I was doing at the time that I was doing it. And then a lot of people would give me time or would give me a piece of advice or would give me that introduction. And for them, it was like a 2-second job and they didn't really think anything of it. But for me, that made a massive difference to my day, to my career, to all of those bits and pieces. So for me, it was like, how do I make sure that if I have the time that I will give that back? And I do say no sometimes because it'll be, it might be a university student. It's like, here's my 150 questions for my dissertation. I'm like, I don't have a time, pick 2. Yeah. Or, someone asked me this week if I could proofread their dissertation. I was like, I am absolutely not the best person to proofread a dissertation. And also my time doing that's probably done. But I was like, I'll happily introduce you to a copywriter. You'll probably have, like, they're junior. You probably have to pay them a little bit. But I've made those connections rather than just ignoring the message, because I do, again, cheesy, think that these things come full circle and they do come back. And even going into unis and chatting at unis, there's then people that have become clients that have, my lecturers stayed with them or made them think differently about their career. And then when they're in a brand or they're in a different business, it's like, oh, actually, I know the right business or the agency or the person to go to with that too. And I would always just encourage, I think sometimes people don't do it because they don't think they have the answers or they might not be able to help. And I've been in those situations where I'm like, I cannot help you. I put up a stupid TikTok the other day and I was like, I'll happily look at anyone's CV if you want me to send it through, but like, these are the mistakes I keep seeing. And I got sent 1,000 CVs. I went through every single one, but then there were ones that were around like accountancy and becoming a barrister. And I was like, it's detrimental for you, for me to go through this CV because I'm from such a different field. But actually, here's 3 people that you can ask yourself on LinkedIn. So it's also like having the ability to say, I don't know the answer to it. And that's also okay too.
Yeah, I get that. Where does your energy come from?
I worked for Red Bull for 3 years, so those like fumes are just ingrained in me. I don't know. I've always been high energy, hyperactive. I did a strengths test when I started working with my coach, and he was wetting himself. He was like, I've never seen this before, but of all of the different strengths that you could have, it pulls out 3, and mine were enthusiastic, passionate, and excited. But I was like, oh God, and that's really, really an accurate representation of like me as a person. And I thrive off other people. I enjoy being around other people. I enjoy working. And yeah, I do struggle to contain my energy. I'm like, and it's weird because even though I'm like completely depleted of all energy levels because I've got my daughter, I still somehow manage to be like the parent, like cheerleading on the side of gymnastics for 18-month babies. And they're like, you're really weird. I'm like, no, I know, I'm really odd. So yeah, I just think.
It's really nice though, because it's really infectious.
It's probably really annoying too.
It's not, but it's also, it's just really quite, I mean, and I won't keep blowing smoke up your ass, but I think, you are someone who is consistent but also really passionate and really empowering. And actually, for someone like me to read your posts or for you to spend half an hour out of your time or whatever, it's actually really, it pushes you on a little bit to see, someone in the same industry as you doing things or speaking about things in a different way. So it's definitely infectious.
I appreciate that.
Can you take a compliment?
No, it's so hard. I'm like, cool, thanks, move on, stop.
Yeah, let's talk about mindset. And you are someone who seems positive most of the time. How, again, is that something that comes naturally to you, or there's a lot of people who have to talk themselves into positivity? Talk to me about your mindset.
I am, on the whole, positive. I have outbursts, which are moments when I have absolutely no clue what I'm doing, or I'm stressed by something, or can't see the wood from the trees. But they're really intense short bursts. And
like a fuck off 5 minutes.
Literally exactly that. I had a wonderful employee, and I was so lucky. The first person I ever hired when I ran the agency stayed with me for 5 years. And I remember this one day, there was like 1,000,001 briefs that needed to go, pictures that needed to go across to clients. It was just like everything was all kind of happening in one. And my laptop wouldn't work. It literally wouldn't send any emails. And I remember being like, oh my God, does anyone know anything? And obviously we didn't have IT at the time. And she was like, have you tried turning it on and turning it off? And I was like, and it was just that thing of like, yes, I have. And I was like, of course I have. I wasn't born yesterday. And then she just wet herself. And I realized, like, just by her reaction, like also how stressed and ridiculous I was being. And then I was over it. Yeah. I was like, you know what? I will turn it on, and I will turn it off and on, and we'll see what happens. But in those like heightened moments, when you just need, exactly to your point, like that 5 minute fuck off, like go get yourself a coffee, go for a walk, put your laptop down, go work from home. By the time you've got there, everything is kind of like easier and clearer. And yeah, again, I'm better when I am around people and being in environments where I can kind of like thrive off how other people are and how they're being. I do get really overexcited, and I know that I am really annoying when someone else is trying to concentrate and get something done. And, you know, we've just won a brief or something's just happened, and I'm just like, this is like, you know, I took my daughter to Disneyland, and my husband was like, I'm really worried about you. Like, you might actually explode. And he was like, this is for her, not for you. And I was like, no, but I'm getting so much out of her loving it here. And yeah, so that kind of happens inside and outside of work. And then I thrive and get more excited when things kind of like go to plan, or you kind of unlock the next level. And that is the kind of what continues to like fuel and motivate me to kind of keep that like positive, enthusiastic, high energy mindset. But I definitely never in really hard situations, my default would kind of be to kind of like hide and avoid it and try to like stay in the shadows, which you just can't do when you run it. And again, the more I try to work on like just taking my strengths, and although people might find it really weird that someone is enthusiastically telling you you've done a shit job, it's just a different way to making it awkward, because I feel uncomfortable, and those difficult conversations have kind of got to happen. It's just like how you handle them based on you as an individual.
Yeah. Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome?
All the time.
Oh, talk to me about it, because I get it. Well, I think everyone feels it.
I think everyone feels it, and it's even like it can be things I've done 1,000,001 times. And so again, going back to my trampolining, which is hilarious because I haven't been on a trampoline for like 30 years, but I would go into the gymnasium, and I would go into the corner, and I would sit there, and I would go through my routine in my head, so that when I got on the trampoline to compete, I was like, I've done this already in this room, I am ready. And that was a huge part of like my prep and getting myself into the right zone to be able to compete. And the thing with imposter syndrome is like, I can speak at as many schools and as many universities, and I can talk about connects all day long, and I don't need to prepare, because if I can't talk about that, I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, because it's what I do all day, every day. Yeah. But then there'll still be these moments when it's like I will win a brief, even now as a consultant, and it's me. I am a one-man band, and I'll win something, and I'll be like, yeah, and I can do this, and I can do this, and I get off, and I'm like, oh my God, I just won that work, and I actually don't think I can do it. And then I start putting pen to paper, and I obviously can do it, but it takes those like shit, why have I said yes to this? Or like, why have I sold myself in? And I think I found it easier being part of a team because I was like, well, I know I've got all these amazing shit hot people that I've hired and recruited. And again, it's a completely different cycle now being me and just me. And I recently did a talk, and one of the other guys doing a talk, I've done a few things with him in the past, and he's brilliant. And I was sat next to him, and I came in halfway through the day, and the speaker before me was on, and he was so corporate, pretty dry, but just, it was a very, very different to the way that I am. And I looked at this guy Paul, and I was like, I think I'm going to be sick. I was like, for the first time in ages, I feel so nervous. And I was like, shit, I haven't been on stage since I came back from having a baby. Maybe I am actually really out of touch. And then I just really got in my head. And he just looked at me and was like, go swear, go speak quickly. That is you anyway. And if people don't like it, you don't care. And then I got off stage, and I had the most people coming to me being like, that was the best thing ever. They're like, today was so boring. We needed some like, and it's that thing of just like, so but it was really corporate. And it was like, it's that thing of like, just, again, the more you can accept yourself, the less the imposter syndrome will happen. And the more you can put yourself in those situations and those positions to be like, I haven't exactly done this before, but I've done this in some capacity, or I've gone through this in my mind. And before anything, like, it's really irritating. Before I go to bed, I look at my diary for the day ahead, and I will always, if I've got a presentation or if I've got something, I will literally be going through it all in my head. And then the next day I don't even think about it, and I just turn up and do what I need to do because I've kind of done that piece getting myself prepared the night before. But I don't think, everyone calls it something different, but I think everyone in some capacity has that degree of self-doubt, imposter syndrome, anxiety, nervousness about something, and that can be different or it could be the same each time. But the more you do it, will be naturally the more confident you get in it.
Yeah, I think you've got a point there about just staying true to who you are, because, and obviously a big message of the podcast in general is that about kind of embracing who you are and following kind of your gut. But I think a lot of people do what they think they should be doing, or say what they think they should be saying, or react in a way that they think they should. And I've done this as well, like, speaking from experience. You get to a point where you're like, fuck, who even am I anymore?
Yeah.
It feels so refreshing to then change from that to then become someone who actually just make decisions from your gut, or talks how you want to talk, or like, I swear all the time, but then I do it at work, and everyone knows that that's just how
I do it with my parents. The only people I don't do it with are Daniel's grandparents. That is where I draw the line. But other than that, like, when my nan was still here, I'd swear in front of my nan. I was just, it's how it was. And I'm a bit like, take it or leave it. But there was also, as the business got bigger, I'd be like, I know that I am not right for banking software. So you actually are brilliant and you're great. I'll help you behind the scenes, but I'm not the right person in the room. And also having the confidence to know when it's not right for you. And when we were way smaller, we pitched on a very, very large booze brand. We got an introduction through someone else. And the day before, she was like, please, can you come with a full face of makeup, a full blow dry, make sure you wear a blazer, and make sure you wear heels. And I was like, well, I don't own a blazer. I always, curl my hair anyway. So I'm like, I'm fine there. And I was like, I'm meeting Nike afterwards. So I've got like my white leather trousers, my Nike trainers, all the rest of it. So I dressed up as like girly as I possibly could. And then without realising, I'd sworn in the first 5 minutes anyway. And then afterwards they were like, oh, you're not quite right for our brand because we are, a big blah, 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 blah. And they're like, but we really just enjoyed this meeting. And I was like, actually, I'm okay being really shit hot at what I do and being myself and not getting the job than having to then do that work and probably do it badly because I constantly was trying to act and be someone different than I am, because that makes it so much more exhausting and way harder of a gig to maintain and to keep.
I feel like that was my whole 20s, like just trying to like square peg round hole. Do you think, I mean, you got onto it a lot sooner than I did, but do you think it just comes with age? Because now I feel like I'm in the right place at the right time and I'm good at what I do, and I have, that has come with so much more self-confidence and like determination and self-belief, and just not really giving too much of a, without being a dick, too much of a fuck what other people think, because yeah, I have belief in myself and my capabilities, and therefore I feel like I'm going somewhere with this. But my whole 20s were just like, am I doing this right? Should I be doing
You're
this?
still
Like, what is
finding
doing
yourself
you?
in your
I didn't
20s.
get it.
Yeah.
And something just fell off. So do you think it's a lot to do with age and growing into who
I
you
think so.
actually are?
And I think you kind of get out of that, like, mindset when you're younger of trying to be the popular kid or get on with everyone or do what, you know, the trends are or wear the right things.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point where you're like, actually, this is my style, both, you know, fashion wise and personality wise.
Yeah.
And I think as you get older, your friendship group gets smaller and smaller, but your network gets way stronger. And so you also then start to really cement those friendships and that network around yourself of like who you are, who you interact with, who you hang out with, who you go to when things are tough, who you go to when things are great. And they become so much more accepting of you, and naturally by default you become so much more accepting of you. And then I think you go through the cycle again of like having kids and you lose friends again because you know, I was a big drinker, and I'd get calls when Mari was like 2 weeks old being like, cool, so we're going to go out, we're going to do this. I was like, I don't want to go out, I'm too tired. She wakes up multiple times in the night anyway, so I can't be pissed. And then I've got to look after the next day, so I don't want to be hungover. And then you, again, naturally start to see some of those friendships like drop off too. But then I've also had other friendships that, you know, people have moved out of London and we've lost touch, but then we've ended up having kids at the same time or getting married around the same time. And then you're going through those big life moments again at a similar time. And so, yeah, I just think those friendships that you form and that support network that you have help you to just be truly confident in yourself and who you are versus what, when you're younger, you listen and consume everything. And, you know, I'm so lucky that I'm 35 and didn't grow up with social media because I couldn't think of anything worse than like getting home and being Snapchat bullied or getting DMs telling you whatever. And so I can't even begin to imagine the pressure that like my kids are going to go through. Because it's just, it's tough when you've got that 24/7 access.
Yeah, it is. But it's also on the flip side of that, it's really nice to just be like,
oh yeah,
you know?
That's wonderful.
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been going to bed at like 8:30. I couldn't do that when I was running a business. I'm like, put Mari to bed, and then I'm like, do you know what, Danielle? I'm off to bed.
Yeah.
I'll watch something on Netflix, I'll go to sleep. I don't have to make a big song and dance out of anything, or because it's a Thursday or a Friday night, I should be doing something. I'm like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, nice. How is mum life?
It's wonderful. It's hard. It's way harder than it looks. And I've always loved kids. I always knew I wanted kids. I've always been great with kids. So I just thought I'd take to it so easily. And then you go through this like ridiculous sleep deprivation. And Mari was a terrible sleeper. Touch wood, she now sleeps. But I was, and that was also part of it with Connect. You're trying to make these massive decisions that don't just impact me, they impact other people's lives. And I've had like 3 hours sleep. And then I was like, at the time when she was born, I still had my emails on my phone. So I'd wake up at 3 a.m. for a feed and I see something from my investor or a client. And then I wouldn't be able to sleep again because I'd be thinking about those things. So like, I took emails off my phone and I had to really change my mindset when Mari woke up to be like, oh God, she's awake and how long is she going to be awake for? To be like, oh, this is just me and her in the world right now. And everyone else is asleep and I won't get this time forever. So I have to just embrace this, enjoy it and relax. And as soon as I could kind of get all of those bits in order, it was great. And I am just constantly feel like so lucky that I get to be as present as I am and to spend as much time with her and that I've been able to have kids in the first place. So yeah, it's hard, but it's wonderful.
I guess to end the episode, let's talk about some of your tips and advice for people really staying true to themselves or how to stay true to themselves.
Yeah, so I would say, I guess from a work perspective right now, it's going to be brutal. So your confidence is going to be massively, massively knocked because there are just redundancies happening everywhere. There is so much competition going for jobs. And a lot of people that I'm speaking to are like trying for things that they've got no experience in. So, and they're getting nowhere because of all of the various knockbacks. So there's the work side at the moment is this is such an unusual time where we are definitely in a recession, even though we're technically now not in a recession. And I was saying to someone yesterday, like, you've got to treat this looking for a job as a soft launch, not a hard launch, because you've got to still put yourself first and remember, like, who you are, what's important to you, not just take the first job because you'll be looking again in 3 months anyway. And then from a personal perspective, it is just like, again, it's like appreciating the evolution and the change that you will constantly go through. If you lose friends or you lose, you know, different bits and pieces at times, it's all okay. Because there'll be different people that come along at different stages at your life that are hugely important and hugely impactful for you. And it's just embracing that, embracing the good days, realizing that there's going to be shit, hard, awful days that come along with that. And as long as you've kind of got that support network and the confidence in yourself, it's always going to be all right.
Yeah, I love that. But thank you so much for this. It's been really
thank
nice
you.
to chat, and yeah, so many bits of kind of refreshing information, but also little bits of tips and advice throughout the kind of conversation. So yeah, thank you.
No, of course, appreciate you having me.
Thank you.